Hello there, amazing people. Someone posted this video, and I have a hair in my eyes in my Discord from eBoss Central. Yeah, that's the name. Microsoft still think Linux is cancer. And if you don't know what that goes a reference to, Steve Ballmer, I think it was, at a conference or something to that nature, said that open source and Linux was cancer. So I kind of want to see what this is all about.
About 2 weeks ago, I did a video right here called Microsoft Pluton in the name of security, my butt. It's not the word I used. I actually edited it out so the video wouldn't get blocked anywhere.
You can't say ass. I just said ass. You can also say fuck. You can't do it. You can't have it in your title, and you can't say it all the time. But you can't say ass. I just said it, and I'm not getting demonetized. Look at my videos. I have somewhat of a sailor's mouth. You can't say bad words. You just can't use them extensively.
But I did that video, and I had a lot of people that actually backed what I said in the video. And then I had some people that told me that I need to get out of my room wearing my tinfoil hat because Microsoft's outlook on Linux and the way they interact with Linux now is very important to the Linux community. Well,
I don't know if I will agree. Like, important, I don't know. I don't think I agree with that. I just think that they are funneling a lot of money, not funneling, but funneling a lot of money into open source and Linux right now. And yes, we can take advantage of it, but it's also in the nature of that sometimes you have to be careful of who you let help you, if you get what I'm saying here. But if you think Microsoft is better than Red Hat, Canonical, and SUSE, you are wrong. Just because Canonical and SUSE and Red Hat is doing open source and sharing code with each other and stuff like that, in the end, if Red Hat or Canonical could take over users for a Red Hat, let's say Canonical could take over users from a server installation place from Red Hat, they will do it with no fucking eyelids and crawls about it. If they're like, oh, we can outcompete Red Hat and SUSE here, we can take money away from them, and they will do dubious, devious, and not so friendly things to do so. They are here to make money. They are not friends. Red Hat and Canonical are not friends. They are competing with each other. But let's not talk about that, okay? Because that's not a good look at Linux.
I'm here to tell you that it's not, and I'm here to show you some ways right now that Linux is going to be hurt by what Microsoft is doing. That's what we're going to cover today on eBuzz Central. Now, if you look back at Steve Ballmer's reign at Microsoft, there's not much to be really happy about. And what a lot of people do forget is that 21 years ago, Steve Ballmer said Linux is a cancer. It attaches itself to an intellectual property sense to everything it touches. That's what he said.
Well, let's think about it, but let's not call it a cancer. But let's call it a virus, and you can call it there are good viruses and there's bad viruses, and I need to give a little bit more light to you guys on my webcam here. This is not what I believe. This is just like, let's be objective and analyze how the open source GPL license work. If you do anything with the GPL, you have to use approved GPL licenses. So actually, if you attach your code to a GPL project, you now have to become a GPL project. Is that not a little bit like looking at a virus taking over cells and expanding, or an organism like that expanding its reach within inside the human body? You can debate that to some extent. That's also what proprietary software does. Like, if you're attaching yourself to proprietary code, at least that part of the code that you're attaching yourself to has to be proprietary. But let's be honest here. If you are attaching yourself to the GPL, you have to follow the GPL. Where if you attach yourself to an MIT license, you can detach yourself from it also. If you attach yourself to a BSD license, you can detach yourself. You can't do that with proprietary code, and you can't do that with GPL. So, even though that I don't agree that Linux is cancer, but he's kind of right in the sense that if you attach yourself to GPL, you are now forced to use GPL-approved codes, and you are forced to follow what the GPL is saying in the name of the greater good. That's not what we're talking about, if that in the name of the greater good is actually good or not. We just talked about how the license is forcing you to do things. And that's kind of what he means with his cancer. Steve Ballmer is a showman. He likes to, he's not dead, so he likes to, oversaturate. Like, he would be a massively fucking great YouTuber. Let's be honest here. He loved to make it colorful, exciting, He always saturate and stuff like that for the name of effect, Instead of catching this big of a fish, it's like a T-post fish he catch. You get what I'm saying here?
Linux is a cancer. But over the last 20 years, the PR people for Microsoft have kind of, cozied up to us Linux users and said, hey...
Not the PR people. It's actually with the change of the CEO they have right now that used to be a Microsoft engineer. And the fact that a lot of companies are going over to open source and even customers wanted to, fiddle around with open source. There are so many factors. It's not just the PR team. That's a misconception. It actually is Microsoft as a whole. But here's the thing. Microsoft is a bad company. So if Microsoft made a Linux distribution and had a Linux distribution, they will still be doing what they're doing today, but they will be doing it on a Linux distribution. Microsoft is not changing its approach to software and the IT industry just because they are supporting open source. They will do everything they can to milk every fucking little fucking penis hair off you and milk off your titties. That's what they do. That's what they do. They will not change their philosophy and their business profile just because they're supporting open source. They just see a monetary benefit to do so right now. And if the day come when open source become irrelevant, it could happen. Or there's not enough money in it anymore, they will just be like, and move away. They don't care about the fucking philosophy and politics. They only care about this.
We're here for you, and we want to make things easier for you, and basically just lying to us.
Not lying. They want that. They wanted to make it easier for you. They want to help you so they can get the money. They are not lying. They actually they are trying to help you, because if you can use Microsoft products or Microsoft things that they earn money on with open source, they make money. They want to help you. They want to help the Linux community so they can make money.
Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying, I'm going to start with my first example today. Now, the first thing I want to go over is a lot of you out there have heard of Rufus. Rufus is a great tool. There's a lot of people that use Ventoy instead, or maybe a Balena Etcher. But Rufus, for me, has always given me the ability to do whatever I needed to do, whether it be a Linux distro or a Windows ISO. Now, the reason I say that is because when Windows came out with all the TPM protection and blocking the ability for some people to put Windows 11 on older hardware, I did a video that basically showed you how you could go into Rufus, disable the TPM requirement, and be able to install Windows on a laptop or a desktop. Well, Microsoft has blocked the ability for Rufus to download the ISO. And if you go...
See, again, you are trying to do something with a piece of software that the developers don't want you to do. If they are doing so, you can't download a non-TPM Windows 11 ISO. They are in all the right to do so. They made the software. They develop it. I see no problem with this. There should be no problem with this. You're trying to hack the software to be used in a way that they had deemed it should not be used in. They spent the billions of dollars making this software. I think we could probably say billion of dollars making Windows 11. They spend the money, they spend the time. They can do with it whatever the fuck they want. And if you don't like it, you don't use it. But sit here and bitch and moan that it's, and this has nothing to do with Linux or open source. At all. It's just Microsoft saying, well, we believe in the TPM. I'm a big component against the TPM for the consumer, but that's another video. But Microsoft is saying, we want TPM. And if you want to run our latest OS, you need TPM. They are in all their right to do so. And yes, I totally agree that they should not be doing it for the consumer, and it's giving the consumer the middle finger. I get it. But they can do it. They made it. It's their child. They built the house. They determine where the fucking kitchen is, where the crapper is. They made it. If we don't like it, we go to another house. But hey, what do I know?
Go over and actually do some of your own research. You'll see that the developers have found a way around the block and have released an update. But you know Microsoft is going to continually block this because they don't.
Yes, because you're trying to use their software and the programs in an intent that's not, or in a matter it's not intended to be used on. Of course they're going to do it. There's no problem with this. This is a non-issue. It's Microsoft doing something they want with their software. They made it. They built it. It's their fucking software. And if we don't like it, we don't use it. And if we try to fucking circumvent their blocks that they put up, they put other blocks up. It really boggles my mind that he's so against Windows. Why the fuck do he care if Windows is doing this? Other than it makes Windows look bad or Microsoft look bad. That's the only reason why he cares. It's because it makes Windows and Microsoft look bad. And here's the thing, it really don't. You're trying to use a software in a way it's not intended. And they are saying, we don't want you to do this. Stop doing it. Stop stealing my fucking cookies, you idiot. Eat your vegetables. And then they are trying to get cookies from your brother. They are moving the brother away so you can't steal his cookies. That's all they're doing. Eat your vegetables, kids.
Don't want people downloading the Windows ISO, then being able to block the TPM requirements because that is essential to what Microsoft at present is trying to do. Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying, let me show you this. Recently, Microsoft has started blocking UEFI bootloaders, enabling a Windows Secure Boot bypass.
Dual booting. Why do you need a UEFI bootloader secure boot bypass if you're dual booting Windows with Linux? That's the only time you need to bypass secure boot, if you have Windows installed on your computer. And there are so many ways of bypassing this, putting your bootloader on a separate hard drive, for example, and stuff like that. Is it a douchebag look for Microsoft? Yes. Is it something that makes Microsoft look bad? Yes. Why are they doing it? Well, there are ways for people that are dual booting Linux to go onto your Linux system and then get access to your Windows system from Linux. And I mean bad people. And it have happened, and it can happen. This is a non-issue. This is only an issue if you want to dual boot your system. I have and am, well, I don't am anymore, but I have up till like a couple of months ago, dual booting my Windows 11, and you need secure boot for Windows 11 with Pop! OS and Arch and all kind of other fucking Linux distributions. I just separated my bootloaders. I had Windows on one hard drive and Linux on another one. Yeah, this is just so you can't dual boot. And most of you lovely nerds out there are not dual booting Windows anyway. At most, you're running Windows 10 in a VM. At most. Or you have like a separate computer with Windows. Like I said, dual booting almost dead. So yes, why is he saying this? The same with the TPM. It makes the Windows and Microsoft look bad. And yes, I do agree that it's a bad thing to do. It's not really consumer friendly. But it's not going against Linux. The only thing this is saying is that you can't dual boot Windows with other operating systems because they deem that it could end up being a security risk, and it kinda can. Let's be honest, it kinda can. But hey, if you don't want Windows, you don't need secure boot, so you can just it's a non-concern for you.
Now, what is their reasoning for this? What are they telling people their main concern is with this? If you scroll down in the story, it says some signed third-party bootloaders for the Unified Extensible Firmware Interface could allow attackers to execute unauthorized code in an early stage of the boot process before the operating system loads.
Not only could they do it, it have happened before.
That's what they're using it. This is something that you need for the security of your computer. This is what they're telling people. Mm-hmm. You need this. You need to be able to verify this operating system, and you need to be able to verify...
How is that a bad thing? Had Linux done this exact same thing, he would be fucking sucking cocks of the developers and bending over and spreading his ass cheeks and say, Loop, forget that fucking shit. Let's get this train rolling right now. I'm ready. I'm already crying because I love you so much. Put that fucking penis up my ass as fast as you can. I will even say this, had Linux came out with the TPM thing, the Linux users would be fucking masturbating in a fucking big pile of fucking cum that they are throwing over to Stallman and themselves because it's a Linux thing. This is just because Microsoft is trying to do something about security. They don't like it. And here's the thing, this is only going to affect Windows users, not Linux users. If you're already using Linux, disable secure boot. You can even legacy boot into a UEFI system.
The code that it's starting with. Now, my question is how much control does Microsoft want over your software and hardware? They already have the software market. Now they're going after the hardware.
No. They don't care about the hardware. They care about the boot process. And what they want is that they want to make sure that the system that you're booting into is validated. It's a little bit like doing a checksum validation of your ISO when you download it. Really, really, really massively simplified. But that's what they want. They want to run a checksum validation at your operating system every time you boot up. And if you think at it like that, that's actually a really good idea. But had the Linux done it, they would be like, But because it's Microsoft, it's a bad thing.
They want to control every ability.
Oh, on another note, look at what the TPL and the Free Software Foundation is doing with hardware. Look into how they are yelling, and look at the TiVo example. There are so many examples where the Free Software Foundation is yelling and screaming at hardware vendors for using hardware with proprietary bits and bobs on the firmware, and that they don't really like GPL-licensed software to be used on those hardware. All Microsoft has done is to say that you can still install Linux, but if you want Windows on it, we need secure boot. But if you don't want Windows on it, you can install whatever operating system you want. You just can't have Windows on it also.
You have to do anything you want with your hardware. They kind of want to lock it down. And here's the beauty of it. Microsoft can do this and require manufacturers and dictate to manufacturers what they want these systems to look like and be like.
Just like the Free Software Foundation is doing with hardware, or want to do with hardware that have proprietary blips and blobs in it. So is it okay if we do it, but not okay if they do it because we don't like their business model?
Before they'll give them a license for Windows. If you do not believe me, please go out there and do the research yourself. It is a step-by-step process of how Microsoft is trying to not control just your software, but the hardware.
Yeah. They make the software. They can be like, if you want Windows on your hardware, we require these things on your hardware. And again, is it douchebaggy to do so? Yeah. It's massively douchebaggy to do so. But they can. And then the hardware vendors can say, nope, we don't want to agree with that, so we are using Linux instead. Yes, they will lose a shit ton of money and probably go out of business if they do so. So yes, there is a form of monopoly controlling that, and I don't agree with it, but in the end, they kind of can do it because it's their software. The Free Software Foundation and with the GPL, they're trying to do some of the same thing. They want the hardware that they have been running on to be, well, following their philosophies. So again, it's okay if we do it, but not okay if they do it.
And it's going to get to a point to where you can't even boot a Linux distro. Don't believe what I'm saying? Check this out. And I'm asking everybody that's watching this video, if you don't believe what I'm saying, go do your own research. It's out there.
Well, I do. And a lot of the things that this bloke is saying a lot of times is him misinterpreting what he's reading. Because he is reading everything with the lenses that Windows good, Microsoft bad, or Linux good and X bad. AMD have been developing exclusive Ryzen chips for select... Here's the thing. What's right here with red is the key. AMD has been developing exclusive, they are not meant for mass production, Ryzen chips for selective, a few PC OEMs like Lenovo. These Ryzen Pro processors use Microsoft Pluton security chips, although it seems that Pluton does not limit OS compatibility. Although it seems that Proton does limit OS capability. Limit these processors to Windows only. Why is this a thing? Well, workstation laptops, Department of Defense laptops, Department of Defense computers, government's laptops. It makes sense that you have a chip that prevents you from not installing other operating systems onto said computers. Is this something that they're going to be used on everyone's fucking computer? No, but he's reading it like that. You have to read what they're actually saying here. Selective and exclusive. That means that it's not being widely consumer used. Could we put the tinfoil hat on and say, oh my god, could it be? The possibilities are out there. Everything is possible. Yes, this could be what Microsoft want for everything. But as it looks right here, it looks a lot like this is something, like I said, that they are building for governments. You know, like Department of Defense, Department of Energy, if in the States, or the Danish government, stuff like that are using computers and laptops that, well, we don't want, some fucking crazy-ass, drunk-ass motherfucking government employee that's fucking the secretary, plopping in a Linux USB and then downloading fucking, bad porn that you should not be watching on it, and then the cops are coming and stealing it, and messing with us, or foreign entities going over to where you live and stealing said laptop and then just plopping a Linux USB in it and rebooting to that Linux stick, and now they can get sensitive data from the Windows partition. That's kind of what I'm guessing here, but it makes sense in those scenarios that on the chip level, they are protecting you against other operating systems. So if bad actors get access to the laptops or desktops, they can't do those things. And I kind of like it for those scenarios. If it's for me, I would be pissed if they forced that onto the consumer. But exclusive and selective. So that means not all, not everyone. We have to read what they're saying.
You just have to investigate. Now, right now, AMD Ryzen Pro chips with Microsoft Pluton won't boot Linux. Did you hear what I just said? AMD Ryzen Pro chips with Microsoft Pluton won't boot Linux.
But are those going to be consumer available? And are those going to be, or are they meant for specific use case in specific scenarios? Massive difference here. Again, we are reading the same article, or at least we're reading the same paragraph. And we are getting two different fucking things out of it, because I hate everything Microsoft. I fucking want to, and Linux, yay! And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. So let's read what they actually are saying. And I'm dyslexic as a motherfucker. So AMD has developed an exclusive. So you know what exclusive mean? And selective. Select for selected OEMs like Lenovo. And Lenovo is heavily used in sensitive areas. So are HP and IBM computers. So it will make sense that Lenovo have a way of locking down their computers for government use and highly sensitive use cases. It makes sense. This don't mean that everyone is going to suffer from this. If you're going to buy a Ryzen CPU tomorrow, like the Ryzen 5 or 7 or whatever it's coming out, that they will have the same thing. This seems to be a really, really specific CPU for really, really specific use cases, aka not meant for consumer consumption. So again, not a concern for you. Should we have a look out for it? Yes. Should we be like, is this tripling down to the consumer market? We can't be worried about it. We should be worried about it. But right now, this is not a concern for you. And here's the thing. Do you know if this has been a request from Lenovo and those government institutes or those companies that are utilizing sensitive data or doing sensitive data? I honestly think it is. I think that corporations and governments have asked hardware vendors that then have asked Microsoft, what can we do to lock down our systems, because they want more lockdownness. Fucking shut up, dogs. I hate this. Someone walking their dogs out here, they can't fucking control their dogs. I think this is by request, if you ask me. that there have been requests from the IT market for something like this, and Microsoft is delivering it. Why is Linux not doing the same? Why is Linux not going out and say, well, we can also make something like Pluton, so you can lock down your system to only run Linux? Why are Linux not doing that? Why are we not doing that?
Matthew Garrett, a Linux security specialist, wanted to analyze the implementation of the Microsoft Pluton on the Ryzen Pro Zen 3 Plus processor. Ultimately, this didn't go very well, as he couldn't get Linux to actually install to a completion. And if you go down here, he says, as it seems, the firmware doesn't trust any other bootloaders besides Microsoft's, or any drivers using Microsoft third-party UEFI CA key. It's trying to install any other OS that's not Windows won't work.
So here's the thing, like I said before, what is the use case for this CPU? Why was it built? What market is it trying to be used in? And like I said, I have a really, really highly doubt that it's going to be, meant for the average consumer. And therefore, it's a non-fucking issue. And also, there must have been a demand for it, or else they will not be doing it. Okay? There must be a demand for it. They are not going to... This is not done so they can push out Linux. This is done because there's a demand for it. And I can easily find massive amount of places where it could be a demand. Police, Army, Navy, Air Force, research, R&D, medical research. This is just 7 out of my fucking head. Where it makes sense that you can only boot into one operating system, and you can't use a thumb drive and then boot into another operating system, or have, like I said, a crazy ass fucking employee dual booting something by mistake. So why don't we go out and talk to hardware vendors and say, what can we do to make a highly secure system with Linux?
Okay, they've already got the software, now they're going after your hardware.
In specific use cases, not the average consumer.
And they're going to dictate to the hardware manufacturer.
And no, the hardware manufacturers have probably asked Microsoft to do it.
Manufacturers exactly what the hardware is going to require, or they can't get the Windows license. Now, this just doesn't go towards, hey, you need to have this specific chip. You need to have the Pluton instant. It's beyond that. Now, Microsoft's control over the hardware just doesn't stop with the internal.
What if this, again, have you concrete proof that this is something Microsoft have demanded from Lenovo, and Microsoft have demanded AMD to do with an exclusive, selective, limited run, meaning that it's not, when I say limited, I mean it's not that they're only making 1,000 of it, but they are only making these chipsets for specific use cases, so they are not meant to be consumed by the average consumer. Have you any proof that Microsoft have set out to do this, or is it Lenovo that are trying to fill a need for certain institutes, organizations, or AMD trying to fill a need with certain institutes and organizations, and then ask Microsoft to do Pluton and this kind of thing?
Kernels. It also is going to be a requirement for laptop cameras now. So those of you who go out and buy budget laptops that don't have a camera, or it's got a low quality camera, or you just want to get you a decent little laptop that you can do stuff on. I got laptops that I use that I never even turn the camera on, because I'll find something that's affordable, something that's easier to pay for, and something that's easy to put a decent Linux distribution on and move forward.
Yeah, come on, get to the point.
But you're going to have a harder time finding those more affordable laptops now because of this. Starting in 2023, Windows 11 will require new laptops to have a front webcam.
I don't agree with this. I think it's fucking stupid. They tried to do that with the the Xbox One or 360. And I do honestly believe that they have to take this back at some point, because they also had to do it back then. But here's the thing, this is only going to affect you that want to run Windows. The Windows 11 require a laptop to have a webcam, front-facing webcam on it. It's not going to hinder you to install Linux on it. The only thing this is going to do is to allow you to not install Windows on it. This has nothing to do with Linux. This has nothing to do with open source. This has something to do with the requirements of Windows 11. I don't agree with it. I think it's fucking bullshit. But hey, this is only a Windows issue. This has nothing to do with Linux or open source or free software at fucking all.
But that's just not the main part of it. Forward-facing cameras will be mandatory, while rear-facing will be optional. And of course, it doesn't apply to desktop PCs.
For Windows use cases, not Linux, Windows.
And they're going to have specific resolution requirements. They'll have to have a resolution of high definition or better, auto exposure, and auto
Nothing to do with Linux.
White balance. So if you're a manufacturer out there making affordable laptops or maybe lower spec laptops that a lot of people use to put Linux or something like that on, you're going to have to add these cameras to it.
No, you don't. No, you fucking don't. You can still do, because here's the thing, Windows 10 is still supported. Yeah, maybe your price of a laptop will go up like $5. Like, it's not like they're going out and buying a $1,000 webcam and putting it in them. They are buying a fucking cheap-ass Chinese fucking $1 webcam module that do exactly like high resolution or better HD, so 1080p resolution, auto exposure, and auto balancing.
It's going to increase the cost of your production, and then of course it's going to increase the cost to the consumer. I've been preaching this on my channel for a long time. Microsoft wants control over the software, they want the control over the hardware.
Yes, but it's only going to influence and affect Windows users, not Linux users. Will it make some hardware expense? In this case, yeah, it will probably go up a buck or a couple of bucks. And it's, like I said, I'm agreeing with him here. It's fucking bullshit.
And they also want to make sure that when you buy that hardware, the only operating system they want you to run is Windows, period.
No. This has nothing to do with the selective exclusive Ryzen CPU. This, again, yes, secure boot, but like I said before, if you're a Linux user, secure boot is not going to affect you whatsoever.
Now, I know we're going to work on this and probably find workarounds in the near future, but the main point of this...
Why do you need a workaround to get Windows installed if you're not a Windows user?
This is showing you exactly Microsoft's steps at what they're doing.
Okay, so why are they doing this with the webcam? It has nothing to do with anti-Linux or open source, but all to do with data collection, advertisement selling.
They have held our hand for the last 10 years. We love Linux. Linux is part of us.
This has nothing to do with Linux.
We're going to start our cloud, Azure Cloud. We're going to have Linux involved. We're going to
nothing to do with Linux.
Do this. We're going to do that. We love the Linux community. And then they start requiring hardware and chips that won't boot a Linux distribution.
No. You can still disable secure boot and install Linux. I'm doing it not right now, but I have done it like last year on my current hardware.
21 years ago, Steve Ballmer said Linux is a cancer. 21 years later, Microsoft acts like they love Linux. They don't. They never will.
They do. Because what they are doing right now, beside the Ryzen chip, again, like I said, it's a really specific use case chip. But the other two examples that we're looking at, the secure boot and this one here, is not concerning Linux at all. It has nothing to do with Linux. It's a Windows-only problem. Or if you're dual booting with Windows and Linux.
They will use it for what they want to, and that is it. Microsoft does not love the Linux user. They do not.
No, they love money. Just like Canonical don't really love the Linux user. Just like SUSE don't really love the Linux user. Just like Red Hat don't love the Linux user. They love the money that the Linux user provide them. The day that the Linux user is not going to earn them a shit ton of money, they will not be doing what they are doing.
Not love the Linux community, and if it were up to them, every computer sold would only work with Windows. It's just the fact.
Of course they will want that. But the things that they showed us right now have nothing to do with Linux. I'm going to stop here. I don't care what he's saying before this, because I'm fed up with this fucking dude. And I already recorded for almost an hour. Let's recap this. The secure boot is not a Linux concern unless you're dual booting Linux with Windows. And the audience he have and the people he talk to, he don't even want you to run Windows. So therefore, aka, etc., blah blah, and all those things, it's not concerning you. The Ryzen chip is built and made for a really, really specific niche use case. Again, meaning not meant to be used for the average consumer. So therefore, it's a non-Linux concern. The webcam is only a requirement if you want to run Windows. So if you only run Linux, this is a non-concern for you. At most, like he said, it will drive up the prices of cheap laptops a little bit. Because like I said, those fucking modules, they cost almost nothing. And here's another thing. There are plenty of second-hand laptops and computers out there if you just want to run Linux. What I tell people is, if you want to run Linux, don't buy a new computer. Because you probably don't need it. Buy a second-hand computer. Again, this dude has... his tinfoil hat is so fucking down his head that I think it's covering his fucking ass and penis, and he's fucking shitting himself and sniffing his own fucking feces. Anyway, see you all later. Bye bye.